Okay, so thanks for being here, everybody. Let me just open this up so that you can see it all. Lauren, can you just give me like a thumbs up if you can see it all full screen? Thank you. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come and learn a little bit more about teaching kids yoga, the essentials, what I consider to be the essentials, which is not necessarily what all teacher training schools consider to be the essentials. Often the essentials are seen as how to keep kids engaged, what are the best poses to do with them, what are some fun games. Whereas for me, the essentials are much deeper, and it's actually about understanding children, their brain, their nervous system, how they learn, and really how we can best support them in this fast flowing world that we live in now. So this is really, I would say, foundational. It's what a lot of yoga teachers and even school teachers aren't taught. And it's why kids yoga can really feel a lot more challenging than it actually needs to feel. So if you have been feeling like it's been challenging or it's not quite as joyful or rewarding as you might have expected, then my intention for us after the end of this workshop is that you walk away with some really deeper understanding and some practical skills that are going to support you in feeling more playful and light-hearted and more energized in your classes, because there is really nothing worse than coming away from a kids yoga class and feeling discouraged or disappointed with the way it went, or even tiring. And like, we've all been there. So if you are new to me, I know some people here and also those of you watching the replay are familiar with me and have done some trainings with me. But I am Laura, a children's yoga teacher trainer. So I've been doing the trainings for around 10 years now. And I've been working within children's yoga and well-being full-time for about 12 years. And I'm also an early years educator. So prior to the world of yoga, I was working as an early years teacher in international schools. I'm now based in Hong Kong, have been in and out of Hong Kong for the last 20 years, worked in a lot of different schools, a lot of different places and countries, but I'm originally from the UK, as you can probably hear from my accent. So my background and everything that I've done from the age of 16, so, only a couple of years, for the last over 25 years, has all been related to children. Everything has been, whether it's education, children's well-being, supporting families, working with neurodiverse learners. It's everything that I've ever done has been around supporting children, whether it be through education or through well-being. And now I really do it through the both. So my approach, I always say, is very playful, therapeutic, holistic. But whether I'm working with children or adults or seniors, I want everybody to feel supported, safe, and confident. I would say they are the main underlying approach to everything that I'm teaching is that I want people to feel supported, safe, both physically safe, but also psychologically, emotionally safe, and confident in their own abilities and themselves. So our focus for today, because there was really a lot that I would have liked to have talked about, even in my 95-hour training, I feel like it's not enough time. There's always new things to learn about and to share. But today I really want to focus on why kids yoga can feel harder than expected. And if you haven't taught kids yoga yet, then you are one step ahead, if not 10 steps ahead of a lot of teachers who are already teaching and who are finding it really challenging. I'll be talking about what children's behaviour really means. So what they're actually communicating with different types of behaviour. And we'll go through some scenarios and practical tips on how you can maybe change the way in which you would typically respond in that situation. What to prioritize when things don't go to plan, because it doesn't matter how long you've been teaching for, things do not go to plan when you're working with children. That is normal, that is to be expected. We do have to be adaptable when we're working with children. It's just something that maybe you either are or it's something that you learn to be, but adaptability is a huge part of working with children. And how trained teachers think and respond differently. And when I say trained, I don't necessarily mean certified in yoga, but trained in this approach of coming from a deeper understanding and a developmentally appropriate approach to working with children. So I know, Lauren, you're obviously, we've been teaching kids yoga for couple of years now. You're doing very well, I can see. And Zakia, you've been teaching, am I correct that you're teaching in a school?
I was teaching in the school until about a year ago. Like yourself, in early years for the last decade, I think, more or less. But I have been doing lots of yoga with the children within schools, and I'm now working mainly using breath work, which is why the yoga is something that I'm really interested in. So I do sessions with children and parents now, and trying to get
Nice.
back into schools.
Yeah, so we have a very similar background as well. Okay, so that's great. And Shan and Nikita, welcome. You're welcome to type in the chat if you like, about how, if you've got any experience, if you've tried teaching kids yoga, or if you've been teaching children's yoga for a while. You can just type it in the chat box and let us know so I can kind of see where everybody is at. But here are some, let's say, situations that you might have experienced, one or all of them. Most definitely across my time of 25 years of working with children, I have experienced these a number of times and so much more. And some of these still happen, but now obviously I'm able to respond in a different way to them. So children wandering around, not staying in the group, just doing their own thing. This is very common in regular classrooms, but definitely within children's yoga. Very easy to solve this, this kind of disruption, let's say, in the class. Talking, calling out, interrupting, maybe distracting other children. Children not listening. This is also very common. Sometimes it appears that they're not listening, but actually they are, or they're just trying to find a way in which they can focus and listen. Children not participating, the energy and the volume in the class escalating quickly, feeling frozen or unsure of what to do. So when you're in that moment of, oh, I really don't know what is the best approach here. Do I ignore him, or do I shout at him, or do I encourage him to come over? Do I leave the group and go and get his hand, and what do I do? And it's this awful feeling of being frozen and not able to make a decision in that moment about what is the best choice, what is the best response that is safe, but also is keeping the whole group emotionally and mentally safe. And then leaving the class feeling drained, disappointed, or discouraged about how the class actually went. I think feeling exhausted after classes is very common for kids yoga teachers. So you can just put a little hand up or type in the chat box if you've ever experienced any or all of those situations. As I said, these are things that I am definitely, I've experienced multiple times. So everything that I share really does come from my own experience as well. So Lauren, definitely, yes. All right, so kids yoga is not adult yoga made more fun or made easy. And I do think this is one of the most common misconceptions. It's something that I see often with teachers who maybe haven't done a kids yoga teacher training or any kind of training around working with children. And it's just this assumption that children are just going to go with the flow. Maybe we'll do a little bit of singing. Let's all do our sun salutations together. Kids are going to be quiet. But it's not. It's a completely different style. It's a completely different skill set. Adult yoga does assume self-regulation, attention, and readiness. So if any of you teach adult yoga or teach adults in any way, you walk into a class, it's quiet, everybody's on their mats. Most people have gotten there early so that they can do their favorite posture, relax, do a little meditation, settle themselves down. So they're already mostly regulated or on that way of regulation. You've already got their attention the minute you walk into the room. You don't have to fight for their attention. And they're generally ready to learn from you. They're ready to flow, they're ready to move, they're ready to meditate. Okay, so adults come into the class and they are ready. Kids, especially young children, they don't have the ability, their brain, their nervous system is not developed yet to be able to do that. So even if they are what we consider to be well-behaved children, they don't have the ability, especially 7 years and under, to actually regulate themselves. So if they're not regulated, they're not settled, they're not ready to learn, their brain is not primed or optimized to be able to learn, to listen, to focus. So that is just one of the main reasons. It's not just about the body, but the brain, the nervous system is completely different. So often, behavior is not defiance. It's not that they're actively trying to disrespect you or actively trying to push your boundaries or, choosing to do something to make you feel frustrated or upset. It is actually the nervous system telling you that it's communicating that there is something, a need. So it might be that they're not regulated or that their brain is not ready to learn, but there is a need that is not being met. So behavior, if you start to look at children's behavior as this behavior is the nervous system telling me that something is not settled, that something is not comfortable in this child, and I need to help them to feel more settled and more relaxed and ready to learn. It really takes a lot of the frustration out of it. Because the reality is, as adults, if a child is causing some sort of disruption in the class, we automatically either go into some sort of panic mode or feel a loss of control, or we get really frustrated. And I think if we can start looking at the child or the group, even if it's the whole group, there's something happening here where they're not able to control their own behavior, that they're uncomfortable in their own body, that their nervous system is not regulated. And it is my responsibility as a teacher to be able to support that. And it really does help you come from a more patient, compassionate point of view, rather than just feeling dysregulated yourself. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. So Lauren, I noticed with children who are forced to be in my class, versus those who are coming out of the child's curiosity or interest, they come in dysregulated. Yeah, I think a lot of children, thankfully a lot of parents and schools now are seeing yoga as an additional way to support children, not just physically, but certainly their mental health, emotional well-being, nervous system health. But if they're coming and they're kind of forced to come, or they don't want to come, or they're too tired, then they come in either overexcited or overwhelmed and generally dysregulated. And that's why I always say we start every class, and I really recommend always you start every class with some sort of regulation technique, whether that is some sort of grounding breath, shaking it out, tapping, sensory input. Makes a huge difference to how the rest of your class actually goes. So, as I mentioned, behavior is communication for us. And I'm not saying that you have to figure out how to speak this kind of language. You don't have to decode, oh, what does this exact behavior mean? I'm certainly not saying that. But generally, children's behavior, if it isn't what we would consider typical behavior, where they want to, because yoga is fun, it is enjoyable. You've got this group of children, you're doing playful things, it's creative, you're creating a space where they can be open and have discussions and do playful, creative things with them that, are very meaningful and often quite gentle and holistic. So if a child is choosing not to participate, if they're increasing their volume in their voice a lot, or they're calling for a lot of your attention, then that behavior is showing you that they're actually dysregulated here. They're not ready to learn, and they're not able to control their own behavior. And that, that feeling of dysregulation, like, it as an adult, we are dysregulated, which is normal. We are dysregulated throughout the day at different times. That kind of stress, if you can't control it and it just keeps getting more and more overwhelming and overstimulating, it is very uncomfortable in the physical body. And it really can make you feel panicked and anxious. And especially young children, they can't actually control it. They don't have the part of the brain that is responsible for self-regulation is not developed yet. So they can't really tap into that sense of, oh, I'll just take a deep breath, or, oh, I think I just need 5 minutes by myself. They can't do that. So we have to be able to step in and help them and support them on the spot, as well as obviously teaching them through our yoga practices, things that they can do when they do feel dysregulated or in a state of panic or anxiety. So behaviors such as movement, noise, repetition. What I mean by repetition is things like if they're repeatedly disrupting the group discussion, calling for your attention. These are the body communicating to you that they're dysregulated. So rather than looking at it now from a lens of this is a problem, this child or this child's behavior is a problem, just look at it as this child's dysregulated. What am I going to do to help them regulate? If you take anything away from this session, please let it be that. Every time you see a child, whether it's like not typical behavior, let's say, so where they are being very loud, running around, not participating, seemingly not listening, they're really fidgeting, moving fast, like they're moving, wriggling, just looking at the child and going, this child is dysregulated. What am I going to do to support that? And then honestly, it will make a huge difference to how you interact with children and to the support that you can give them and the feedback that you get from them. So whether you're a parent, teacher, doing this as kids yoga, working with kids in any capacity in a therapeutic setting, regulation first over anything. So not listening. Now, some children, it really looks like they're not listening. So you can type in the chat box if you know what I mean, where it seems like they're not listening, but actually they're trying to regulate themselves. So often that might be they're wriggling, they're moving, they're looking around, and they're like lying down and they're like this, and they're like poking the person next to them. Again, it's not that they're actively trying to upset you or push your boundaries, or that they're actively trying to disrupt the child next to them. they are highly likely to be dysregulated. Now, some children stay in a state of dysregulation quite a significant amount of time, like almost all throughout their day. So they're behaving like this throughout their whole day. And again, rather than looking at it like this is a problem, we need to really like help this child's behavior, we need to look at it as we need to help this child regulate. This child is unsettled, their nervous system is unsettled. What are we going to do to help them come to a place of being settled? Because stress and dysregulation is not a comfortable place to be in. And also, it's a really unhealthy place, especially for a developing body and a developing brain to be in. So when you see children that are not listening, okay, maybe they're really not listening, but the reason that they're probably not listening is because they're not able to. If the nervous system is dysregulated, so if the nervous system is not settled, the part of the brain that allows them to be able to focus, to listen, to respond, to absorb new information, it is switched off. So what's the point of talking to a child or trying to teach a child if their brain is not actually able to learn or to communicate or to respond? So this is where I considered all this to be the essentials. So it's just our job to respond appropriately. Like I said, you don't have to know what every single little bit piece of behavior actually means. We're not trying to be behavior therapists. We're trying to just work with children within kids yoga, and we're just learning how to respond in a way that is safe for everybody and that can really help their nervous system health. So these are what I consider to be the essentials, and this is what most yoga trainings don't teach. And for anybody who's trained as a teacher and educator, they also don't teach you this at university. And I know I was at university like 25 years ago, but I know they don't teach this now. This is not something, which blows my mind because it's so foundational to teaching children. If you don't understand how children learn, how they regulate, how their brains work, how their nervous system works, if we don't have that, if we don't understand how to help them feel safe with things like boundaries, clear boundaries, it is impossible to teach them, and it's really difficult to have a relationship with them. So if you don't know these fundamentals, I consider them to be fundamentals, it really is like driving a car. You know how to make it move, but you don't know the rules of the road, right? So it's very confusing. It's very stressful. You don't really know what's going on. You're doing all the things right because you're making the car go forward and you're making it go left and right. And maybe you even know how the indicator works, but it's very stressful, very unsafe, very confusing if you don't know what the rules of the road are. And it's the same with children. If you don't know how they learn, how they develop, how their brain works, and how their nervous system works, then it is really very challenging for you, and it's going to make it very difficult for the children if you don't know this. And like I say, it then makes it really difficult for you to form a strong relationship with the children as well. So another big one I would say is physical and psychological safety. So psychological safety might be considered like emotional and mentally safe. So emotionally safe is obviously very important. And then kindness with clear boundaries. So boundaries, I wouldn't say they're rules, but definitely where the children are only going to feel safe if you implement boundaries. So when they are wandering around the room, that you are addressing that and encouraging them to come back to the circle, and the boundaries are that we are all in the circle now. So let's all come together and participate. And you might change the activity. You definitely need to do a regulation exercise. But the boundaries are we are all coming together here, or the boundaries are we're staying in this area, we're not going over to that area. So boundaries help the children feel safe and do help to create this deeper relationship and sense of trust between the two of you. So why we don't come from a place of control, or I really, really don't recommend it. Things like, repeating instructions louder, just saying it over and over again. And sometimes it's automatic, right? You might find yourself doing this. Honestly, sometimes, even after 25 years of working with children, I will catch myself doing some of these things. Like, I'll say, okay, everyone, let's calm down now. Let's just calm down. And I hear myself say it. I'm like, what? You're saying that for yourself, because it doesn't mean anything when you're saying it to the children. So just repeating your instructions over and over and getting louder and louder. And, maybe you don't shout, maybe you do, but it makes the children even more dysregulated. Asking the children to be calm, asking them to sit still. Again, if you come at it from a regulation point of view, they cannot sit still. I mean, I don't think they need to sit still in order to learn. You can give them some guidance on how to move in a way that is going to help them regulate. So, for example, if you have a child in a class and they're really wriggling around and it is kind of unsettling for the other children, just say it's okay that you need to move. I see that you need to move. Sometimes our bodies really do need to move. Here is a way that you can help your body to move and still listen, and do something like tapping, and you can do it with the whole class. Or I like to just do simple mudras, moving through mudras. So you can make it a yoga-based movement as well. But they don't need to be still in order to be listening and learning. And if you ask them to sit still, remind yourself the children are not able to. Their nervous system is really trying to find a way to regulate itself, and that's why they're often moving. They're not doing it because they're trying to upset you or purposefully disrupt the group. If they really wanted to purposefully disrupt the group and upset you, they would do it in another way. They would do it in a much more extreme way than just wriggling about when you're trying to have a group discussion. And then removing choices too early. So I do really like to give children choices within boundaries. I think that is the kind but also firm way to do it. As in, okay, I can see you over there. You don't want to participate in this activity right now. You can choose to come back. We're going to do some breathing now because I've realized everybody needs regulation. Or you can take a moment over there if you want to do some drawing, but giving some sort of choice so they do have control, because there's nothing worse than just taking away the control from the children. And I would say, unless it's unsafe, just to let them have some choice is very important. Yes, and as Laura said, offering choices so that they have autonomy. It really is. It's very simple, but it's important. I mean, there's nothing worse, as an adult than feeling like you don't have any choices. So, real life moments. Again, these are things that I have experienced numerous times in both kids yoga, but also in classrooms. So you can let me know if you've experienced one or all of these as well. So the first one, I've mentioned this a lot, a child wandering around the room, because it happens a lot, okay? You will know that. I mean, some of you that are school teachers here, definitely that is something that is happening all the time. Yeah, 100%. So unless they are in a fearful state, which is certainly not a way in which children should be in a classroom or in a home or in any place. They should not be fearful of adults. That is not, as far as I'm concerned, the correct approach for interacting with children and supporting children. A child who needs to move their body will likely move their body. So that might be that they are walking around the room as you're having a group discussion, or let's say you're doing your sun salutations and it's not the kind of movement that they need, and they might be walking around the room, or you're playing a game and they might start running. So typically I see teachers will either go into, one, I'm going to ignore him, which if he's being quiet, it's easy to do, but it is not the most supportive thing to do. So one, I see teachers is, I'm just going to ignore him. And the other is, I am going to demand that he comes back to the class or comes back to the group. Or sometimes it's not demanding, it's a gentle encouragement, but it's a consistent encouragement. And honestly, it doesn't really work, very rarely works. Sometimes if they're little, and it's like, oh, they've gone off, and then you say, oh, do you want to come back? We're going to do this activity now, and they might come back because they're interested, which is great. But if you think to yourself, why is this child wandering around the room? So it's highly likely that they need some sort of movement. The body is trying to figure out some sort of, like, it's dysregulated, so it needs that movement in order to settle itself. Or it could be that the activity that you're doing is not developmentally appropriate for that child. So it could be either too challenging, or it could be that it's not challenging enough. So the best thing to do in that situation is just ask them. Just say, hey, John, I can see that you're not really interested in this activity that we're doing right now. And usually they will respond, yeah, it's boring, or yeah, I don't want to do that. And you can ask them, is there something that you would like to do? So just asking the question, at least it makes them feel heard. I'm not saying you have to do it. Maybe they say, I want to go outside and I want to play football. Okay, well, honestly, we're not able to do that right now, but at least you've listened to that child and you're hearing, okay, he needs a different kind of movement than what I'm doing now. So if they're asking for movement, this is yoga, move. You can do, it doesn't have to be big movements. You don't have to get everybody standing up doing your, sun salutations or a big movement game if you're trying to get them relaxed. Do some sort of movement that is relaxing for them. Do some grounding movement, do a moving meditation. You could even say, oh, John, I see you're walking around the room. How about we all do a walking meditation together? So engaging them, allowing them to feel heard and seen and valued, and then regulating the whole class, because the whole class is going to benefit as well. Because I'm sure if John is walking around the room, he's probably not the only child that needs a walking meditation or a walking relaxation or some sort of like gentle movement. Number two, one child dominating the attention. So it often does end up disrupting the group. And usually when they're dominating the attention, it's that they're speaking a lot. I'm sure you've all experienced this, especially with the little ones. As sometimes, we always joke in Hong Kong that I don't know what it's like everywhere else actually, but Hong Kong especially, did you know that? Did you know that? Did you know that? It's like, oh my goodness me, I can't hear this did you know that anymore in this class. So it is often that child either has a need to express themselves, and maybe they don't have that need met anywhere else outside of the class, and they feel very safe in the yoga class, which is amazing. So again, that might, even though it can feel frustrating sometimes, if you look at it as, oh, this child feels safe to express themselves in my class, like that's an amazing thing, because maybe they don't feel safe or have the opportunity anywhere else. Now, it doesn't make it less disruptive for the rest of the children, but it does mean that you're able to come at it from a much more patient and compassionate perspective. So if if it is an attention, they're trying to, or not even trying to, but they are gaining your attention, they require more attention or taking attention from the activity that you're doing. Again, the need for expression, it doesn't have to be through talking. It could be, okay, everyone, let's all get up and we're going to do our partner poses now. You're going to work with a partner or do some sort of creative activity. It could be that you get the pens and pencils out and they can creatively express themselves through an art activity, through simple drawing, so that allows them to process, to regulate themselves in a way that is probably more beneficial than whatever it is that you're doing. Now, I'm not saying that you don't plan beneficial classes, but honestly, if the children are dysregulated, if they're unsettled, if they're not able to learn, if their brain is not able to learn, then you can have the most meaningful, beautiful, creative classes, but it's just not going to work. And to be quite honest, some classes that I teach, they're completely unplanned because I have my plan, I walk in and I can see immediately this is probably not going to work with these kids today. And then my class is basically just a series of doing different types of regulation activities with them. So breathing, sensory input, tapping, the movement that they need, the creative expression that they need, and just really spending that time settling the nervous system. So again, with this one and with most things, you can just ask children, what is it that you need right now? What can I do to help you? What's the best thing that I can do to help you? Sometimes they don't know, but sometimes they do actually know. And if they don't know, their body is telling you. If a child is talking a lot, they don't need to be silenced. They don't need to be told to be quiet because that is not going to help them at all. They need to regulate their nervous system, or they need to be given that time to speak. And that can be in partner work, or like I say, it can be expressing themselves non-verbally. And it doesn't have to be the whole class. Like it can be just, okay, for the next 3 minutes, everybody, we are going to do this activity. Pens and pencils are always a good one. Zakia, I think flexibility is key. Yeah, definitely, it being adaptable. So I've been there many times, needed to change the class to suit the needs. And that's where I just feel that if you have a couple of regulation tools in the back of your mind, or even write them down. This is what I do in my lesson plans, actually. I mean, not in my lesson plans now, but I write lesson plans and I've got a subscription. And as part of the lesson plan that I write for the teachers, I put in behavior management strategies, like classroom management strategies, so that, because I know what is likely to come up, what kind of behavior, what kind of dysregulation they're likely coming in with. And so I have already there, okay, if this happens, I'm going to do this. I know if a child is wandering around the room, I'm going to ask them all to stand up and do a walking meditation. If a child is not wanting to participate in my relaxation, I'm going to get them all into child's pose and I'm going to do humming bee breath. So you just have some of these regulation tools. And the great thing is, all the regulation tools, they are yoga-based strategies. The most powerful ones are breathing. I just think breathing, out of all of the practices in yoga and all of the typical self-regulation strategies, breathing for children is by far the most effective and the fastest acting. And then group energy. So doesn't matter how long you've been teaching for, the volume can rise very quickly, often out of your control. And I really recommend teachers have some sort of auditory cue. So it could be drum, bells, a singing bowl, but something that gets their attention instantly. If you don't have anything like that, if it's a new group, just clapping, just doing some sort of rhythmic clapping, just to instantly get their attention. Because there is no point if you try to speak more loudly or shout over them, they just end up getting louder, and then you're just like competing for over volume, and it is extremely exhausting for you as the teacher. And really they're just dysregulated. If the volume is increasing and they can't control their noise level, their volume, they are very dysregulated. So you need to instantly get their attention with some sort of auditory cue, so singing bowl or chime or whatever, and then regulate them with a fast acting, I would say, breathing technique or tapping. This is my go-to for super quick. You don't have to explain it, and it really is very instantly soothing with that sensory input. Lauren, I don't spend much time planning and creating a fixed, rigid structure. Yeah, I think it's nice to have a plan and obviously feel prepared and organized, but it's great to go in with, like you say, some sort of soft blueprint for how you're going to guide the class. Ready to throw out my plan as soon as the group's dysregulated. Yeah. And the thing is, most children are coming into the class with this level of overwhelm and overexcitement, overstimulation, because their brains, like I said, their nervous system are not developed yet to be able to regulate themselves. So it's not their fault. It's not your fault. There is no fault. It's not a problem. It's just simply these children, their nervous systems need support right now. How can I do that? I'm going to just do some breathing, some tapping, and do some dancing or slow movements. Hello, hello, welcome if you just joined. So, this might mean that you change your priorities. So for some of you, like Lauren trained with me, so she's of the same belief and approach as me. So I think we have very similar priorities with regards to regulation. Thank you, Lauren. So safety first. So physical safety is really important. Kids do not need to be doing handstands and deep back bends. They need to be doing things that are going to support, obviously, regulation, but really supporting the healthy connection with their body, understanding of their own body, coordination and balance. Okay, so safety first physically, and then safety emotionally and mentally. And that comes from things like boundaries. Okay, having some sort of guidance of what we do and what we don't do, and how we respect each other, how we respect ourselves in the class, building up a sense of trust with the children. And then regulation before instruction. So remembering, if they're not regulated, their brain is not able to learn, not able to process information or instructions. So you can give as many instructions as you like, the brain will not be able to understand it. So again, that's not the child's fault. It's not your fault, but all is missing is that simple piece where you get them settled and regulated. And we can do this through a couple of hummingbee breaths, 3 or 4 cleansing breaths, a child's pose, tapping. Yeah, keep it nice and simple. It is simple. And this is what's great about it. It's really simple. It doesn't require any instruction, obviously, because they're not able to follow instructions. It's very much like we're just doing it, and they see you doing it and they copy. And it's so simple, but has such a dramatic impact on the child's overall health and their learning, on their behavior, on how your class goes, how you interact with the kids, how you feel during the class, but also at the end of the class. Looking at structure, so creating some form of structure, and it's not about being rigid, it's about being, I would say, more consistent and dependable. That's really important that you are, as the teacher, you're regulated, you're dependable, you're reliable. They know what to expect from you, without trying to control them. It's just not going to work. You're not going to build up a sense of trust if you're trying to control them or trying to overly control the situation. What will happen is you'll get some children who resist against that, and then you'll get some children who are just in a place of fear, of the consequences, or fear that you're controlling everything, and it doesn't create a deep sense of trust or relationship with them. And calm decisions. So how can you come from a place of calm for yourself from making these decisions? When you're in the moment, something happens, you don't know what to do. Well, if you're regulated, you as the teacher are able to make a decision on the spot, problem solve quickly without really thinking about it. It's just like a deep knowing. If you're dysregulated, then the children definitely will be. That's just the science of it, of how we as humans work. But if you are dysregulated, your brain also is not able to think clearly or make decisions appropriately. So then you go into this freeze mode or fight flight mode. And that's where, the volume increases and everybody's getting a bit shouty and a bit out of control, and everything just feels, a bit wild and chaotic. Whereas if you're regulated, if you are consistently breathing, if you feel confident in yourself and your teaching, then you'll be able to make calm decisions on the spot. You'll know, like, oh, this is not working. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to do this other thing instead. Or I'm going to skip this activity. Doesn't matter. Whereas if you are in a dysregulated place, you're worried about controlling it, being stuck to your plan, you don't have any kind of plan B, or you're not sure how to help the children regulate, you don't know why they're behaving in certain ways, it's really impossible for you to come from a calm place. And the problem with you as a teacher being dysregulated, not only does it impact the children, but it means you leave the class completely drained. Your nervous system is just frazzled, your brain isn't working properly, you're exhausted, and that's just not sustainable. And also, who wants to teach classes like that? Like, honestly, what is the point in teaching classes if you leave and you're completely exhausted and you've got nothing else to give your next class? It's just not sustainable. And that's why I feel that these foundations, these essentials are so important, not just for the children, but for you as the teacher. And it just means that if your classes are more energizing and calming for you, it means that you can teach more classes and support more children. So what is success in kids yoga? I think this, success can mean different things to different people. I would be interested to know, of course, what you consider to be a successful kids yoga class. So Zakia, in these situations, I'll often stop and do humming, tapping, or starfish breathing for yourself. Yeah, I think that is important to do it for yourself. Because as you say, also modeling to the children that you're human too. Yeah, and everyone can experience big feelings. Yeah, it's so important for children to see that in their teachers and also parents and caregivers. So successful classes. Lauren, when kids tell their parents that they want to come back for the next class. Yeah, I think that's really nice because obviously they've enjoyed it and they've experienced the benefits and they've had a very positive experience with you. And that in itself, of course, if you've had a class where the children go away and they say to the parents, I want to come back next week, that has been a good class for you because it's so related. How you feel is really does impact how the children feel. So if you're stressed and overwhelmed and like struggling with your energy, then that is impacting how the children are as well. So they might feel dysregulated. Whereas if they want to come back to the class, they go out, they tell their parents they've had such a great time, it's probably because you have been having fun with them. You've enjoyed it. You've regulated with them. They do the breathing and you do the breathing. You're guiding the relaxation and you're feeling calm and settled yourself. So I also agree that's a great way to measure the success of a kids yoga class. Zakia, when they go home and model, yes, this one, when they model what they've learned in class. So taking on the role as the teacher, that is a big one for me as well. When the parents come back the following week and say, oh, she was teaching us how to do our hummingbee breath, I'm like, yes, oh my gosh, I love that. Or she was teaching her little brother how to do it. Such a good feeling. Not that kids yoga is about me feeling good as a teacher, but it is a great feeling knowing that the children are using these techniques at home and teaching them to their friends or their family. It's just amazing. I mean, then you see it's such powerful work, and these are life skills. This is not just fun things that they're doing in the yoga class. So yeah, successful kids yoga class is definitely not about, did you get them all quiet? Were they all still? Did they do Shavasana for 10 minutes? Like, it's definitely not that. Because children can be quiet and still, but not be regulated, not feel supported, not feel psychologically safe. Like I say, they can be quiet and still because they're in a place of fear. They're in a place of freeze. They're feeling anxious. So being quiet and still doesn't actually necessarily mean anything. It's like, how are they feeling? How is their nervous system? How are they learning? It's really about them feeling and being safe, supported and heard and valued. And a teacher who feels regulated, calm and confident. If you leave your class and you feel
No,
a sense of calm, and you've got like energy, and I don't mean buzzing because that's the opposite. Sometimes I've left classes and felt like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm completely wired, like I definitely need a yoga class myself now. That's also dysregulated. If you feel like calm and you enjoy, a sense of joy, and like you could do another class afterwards, or you're feeling a sense of confidence and knowing that everything felt good and went well and you connected with the children, that is a successful yoga class. So just reading the comments. Yes, success is knowing that when parents tell me that their kids want to practice yoga and pranayama with them. Yes, agree with that. And I worked with a tween, and she told me she felt anxious in a mall and she was overstimulated. She asked her mum to go to a quiet corner with her for a hummingbee breath. That's amazing. That's just like using it on the spot, knowing they know how to use it, they're accessing that. I mean, that's like, what more could you want? I mean, that's giving a teenager like such an important life skill that is going to mean the difference between them feeling stressed and anxious at numerous times in the day and just knowing that they can regulate themselves and settle themselves. That's huge. So it's not about doing everything. This might have sounded like I'm saying, oh, you need to learn how to read the children's behavior and what they're communicating to you and figure out what their unmet needs are. Not saying that at all. You really don't need to be doing more. It's not about adding more to your classes or to your schedule, but it's about understanding what matters the most. And that is understanding how children regulate and how their brains work, how their nervous system works, and how they learn. So just knowing the foundations. And as I say, if you take anything away from this today, just looking at the children in your class where it's a disruptive moment and asking yourself, does this child need support with regulation? And 9.5 times out of 10, the answer is yes. And then just going and using those regulation techniques that you have. And if you don't know any regulation techniques, I have so many on my Instagram and my YouTube. I've got a lot of videos with some quick techniques that you can use, especially on Instagram. I've got a lot, but that can be very, very simple. So most teachers do get stuck here, but I hope that you can start to feel a little bit more confident in yourselves. So, you might understand why kids behave this way, as we've just discussed, but still freeze in the real life moment. So that is about, really trying to build up your confidence in your own decision making in the moment and being able to be adaptable and bring in those regulation tools for children. Sometimes you might still second guess yourself or hesitate with decisions in the moment, or feel unsure of what is the priority, especially when it comes to safety in kids yoga classes, or if you've got one child doing one thing and the rest of the group doing another thing. It can be difficult to figure out what to prioritize, and that again does come with confidence in your own teaching skills and ability. So hopefully this workshop has given you some form of clarity of what might be considered the essentials, certainly by me and my approach. But the confidence, as I say, it does come from the consistency, from the application, taking what you know and then applying it with children, applying it to yourself. So it might be confidence in being able to regulate yourself, which is something that we all really need to do and probably all need to consistently work on. And having support is really important, especially if you're new to teaching kids yoga, having a supportive community, which is very nice to see you all here. So if there is anybody that is interested in learning more about the brain development, how to work with younger children, and how to bring in not just regulation tools, but how children learn through music, creativity, imagination, how that all can come together within yoga-based tools, yoga practices, and relaxation for the younger children. I have a 6-hour foundation training for ages 2 to 6 years. So those that are interested in working with the really young ones, although some of this is definitely applicable for 7 years up as well. And the focus is on regulation, safety, and structure, and effective teaching through, as I say, imagination, music, creativity. So it's really designed for yoga teachers and educators, which obviously is, my background. And for those that do want to understand children on a deeper level so that you can support them in the best way possible. And it's not about just learning. This is a supported space, a supported practice. So the training is 6 hours, so it's not a huge time investment. It's $29, so it's also not a huge financial investment as well. I want to make it accessible. And it's on demand, so you can revisit it anytime. But something that I'm doing that is new is a guided 7-day implementation experience that will be on the 19th of January. So for those of you that have already participated in this training, I think Lauren, you might have, you can join the 7-day live implementation experience with us because you've already part of the training. And this is something that I haven't really done before, which I'm very excited to do, especially because it's live. So the experience is going to just include short implementation prompts. So every day we'll have a different focus on a different challenge that we typically experience within kids yoga or working with children in general. And it will be guidance, support, real life situations that I've experienced and overcome. And it will give you practical ways in which you can practice this to build your confidence. So the 7-day implementation experience is really about building your confidence with actually going out there and putting yourself in these potential scenarios and overcoming it. So building up your confidence, not just in your teaching skills, but in your ability to deal with any kind of situations that arise in your yoga classes. So if at the beginning of the session, when we talked about all of the different challenges that we might have experienced, this is about building your confidence in knowing how to deal with those, not just from a theoretical point of view, but from a really calm state and being able to make those decisions on the spot, being adaptable and flexible on the spot from a very calm, regulated space. And as part of this, we'll have a live group 60 or maybe it'll be 90-minute session together where we'll do a Q&A, we'll reflect on everything that we did in that week, connect. It will be more interactive than this, and I'll be able to problem solve anything that came up for you during that week that maybe didn't go to plan, or where you felt unsure, or you need a little bit of extra support. So if you decide to join the course, so it's the 6 hours online that you can get access to anytime, and it is the live 7-day experience with me at the end of this month on the 19th. You will know how to respond calmly when a child is running around or is disrupting the group or wandering around. You'll know how to prioritize safety without going into a panicked state, and how to support regulation fully, so it's not about control at all. Holding clear but kind boundaries and being confident with that, which is something that I think new teachers can struggle with, that you're trying to enforce the boundaries but not doing it confidently and not sure of how strict you need to be with the boundaries or how kind you should be with the boundaries. And just generally leaving your classes feeling a lot more calmer and steadier, more energized, and that just makes it more sustainable. And the thing with all of my trainings, I've always said that I don't just want people to come to my trainings and workshops and complete the training. It's so important that you actually go out and teach and you do it confidently, because I don't care about having 1,000 trained kids yoga teachers in my community if nobody actually goes out and teaches, because the whole point of this is that we're supporting children. And the reason I went into training other teachers is to help to be able to reach more children so that more children have access to yoga-based tools and self-regulation. And that's why it's so important to me that teachers feel confident during but after the training to actually go out and teach, and it be sustainable so you're not getting exhausted and giving up. So if it's something that you're interested in, then I'll put the link in the bio and I'll also send it in an email. But it includes the 6 hours on demand workshops that's focused on early years, yoga-based tools, a couple of lesson plans. And as I mentioned, actually, my lesson plans do also include some classroom management strategies, some relaxation scripts that all start with a regulation technique and then go into relaxation that is age appropriate. A couple of bonus workshops, one of which is about keeping children safe, mentally, emotionally, and physically safe. And then the 7-day live implementation experience. So those of you that have already participated in this course, then I would love to invite you to join the live sessions, the 7-day live implementation experience. Would love to have you there. And it's $29. So it is a small investment for honestly a lot of value. I will say that the 6-hour course, so it's 3 workshops, is definitely, I believe, one of the best courses, the online courses that I've led and created, because there is so much value in it, and the whole focus is understanding children and implementing practical skills. It will make a huge difference to how you interact with children, how you teach them, and how you feel at the end of your classes. So yes, let me know if you have any questions. It's definitely a great one if you are new to kids yoga, or if you're finding kids yoga a little bit exhausting, or you're struggling with the behavior and you're experiencing a lot of challenges in your class. But if you work with young children in any setting, understanding them and implementing these self-regulation techniques is going to be very valuable. You don't have to be teaching yoga to do that. And if you're a teacher that really wants to teach safely with a focus on nervous system support and emotional well-being, then this 6-hour course and the 7-day live is going to be really, really impactful for you to be able to do that. So before we go, does anybody have any questions, whether it be about the course or anything that we've talked about in the workshop? So anything to do with regulation or understanding children's behavior, or any challenges that you've experienced in your classes that didn't come up in this workshop. You can post any questions or any comments. And if anything comes up after, then you can also send me an email. If there is a challenge that I haven't talked about, chances are it probably is down to dysregulation, but you can always email me or send me a message on Instagram, and I'll definitely answer and help you in whatever way I can. But I would say if you're walking away with anything today, let it be that you question, is that child dysregulated? Does this child need a regulation strategy right now? And probably they do. And if they don't, you probably do. So if you want some more regulation techniques, then take a look at my YouTube or my Instagram. I have lots and lots, but keeping it simple is always great, especially when we're working with the young children. And as some of you have shared, those strategies that you do implement in your classes that are simple, like humming bee breath or starfish breathing, they will instantly go home and start using them. And that's really what we want. We want children to be using these strategies in moments of stress, of dysregulation, when they feel uncomfortable in their body, when they are being told that they have to be still and quiet by somebody else as not you. And then they can just internally start to use, like quietly use those techniques so that they can settle when they do feel stressed or overwhelmed. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for participating in the group chat. And lovely to read all of your messages. Thank you so much. Oh, Marianne, sorry I didn't see you. Come here. Come in. Zakia, I can't wait to see you in Bali in October. We'll be in touch. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much, everybody. I really, really appreciate you.